The previous night had all but stripped the lime trees, and the ground around the rectory was waterlogged. There wasn't a sound of chick or child out in Sackville Square as the Reverend John Drew dragged open the flaking wooden shutters. He suddenly found himself wishing the three women were back again. Judith lolling about in the armchair, her nose buried in a book, Theodora tricking with the embroidery she'd been set in Miss Markham's, and Eliza in the background, calling out commands to Bridget Doherty in the scullery. But now he was alone with himself, with no warm words to soften the uneasy moments between dawn and dusk. And Westmacott's sojourn in Ahadoe had been deferred. His eye fell on the letter lying on the oak escritoire under the bedroom window. Lanscombe Terrace, September the 15th, 1849. My dear John, I hope this letter finds yourself, Eliza and the girls in good fettle. It is with great chagrin that I have to tell you that I will be unable now to keep our assignation over the next 2 weeks. He made his way down the creaking stairs. In the parlour, he surveyed the cold grate, the books strewn here and there, and the half-eaten platter of pork on the table. He watched me and Coney swarm about the room, searching for a warm spot to settle down. It might be possible to do an hour's work before lighting the fire. Perhaps go over the syllable charts and the signs again. He could wrap his legs in Judith's fluffy mauve eiderdown and sit in at the drawing-room table. But then that queer sort of sadness, a millstone pulling his soul down into the sinful depths of despond, overwhelmed him again. He stooped to pick up one of the copies of the Darius inscription from Persepolis. The legend, written in Babylonian over a palace portal, had sat out the centuries, waiting for the attentions of a woebegone, rheumatic cleric in a small, damp town in the Queen's County. In a fit of pique, he suddenly screwed up the copy of the inscription and threw it into the empty grate. No, it wouldn't take much at all. Just a little spark from the box of matches Bridget Doherty had left on the mantelpiece. Then the vain words of a vain king would be sent roaring up the chimney of a vain cleric. In the gloom of the early morning, it took John Drew a moment to make out the little silver locket lying beside the matches, and the silver chain dangling over the edge of the cold marble. She's forgotten the blessed thing. At first, he stayed his hand from the locket, afraid, perhaps, to invoke an even greater evil by touching the thing. Then he slowly reached out for the locket that contained the little wisp of blonde hair. He fancied for an idle moment that the little silver locket was still warm from his wife's breast. But the cold metal case rebuffed his fingers, like the books and the script tables had already done. Slowly and deliberately, he set the little silver locket back down on the cold mantelpiece. He stood there a while, lost between the locket and the scripts on the table, between the heart and the head, with the past washing over him like the autumn rains that sluiced the choking dust down Sackville Square. He scarcely noticed Coney rubbing against his leg, and he certainly didn't hear the child's bony hand knocking on the bare wood of the scullery door. "Dr. Drew, are you in there, Tal?" John Drew crossed stiffly into the scullery. It must be one of Bridget Doherty's come with the kindling. Despite the misunderstanding, Bridget Doherty wouldn't see him freeze. He opened the scullery door to the grubby, wizened little face of a 10-year-old boy. "I brang the kittens for you, Mr. Drew." "Oh yes, the kindling. Fine. Do you want them left again the coachhouse wall?" "Yes, by the coachhouse wall. That will be fine." He watched absently as the boy dragged the bundles of damp faggots from the little handcart. How many were in the Doherty household? 8 or 9. 2 dead during the height of the hunger from fever, or so Mrs. Tours had told Eliza. Not that he credited anything from the Tours woman said. And Eliza was getting far too fond of visiting Backwater in the dark of night, an unseemly thing for the wife of a minister of the cloth to be doing anyway. Bridget Doherty's boy smiled a gap-toothed smile at John Drew as they sauntered into the house. While the child set to clearing out the grate and arranging the sticks into a pyramid, John Drew cut a large wedge of bread and covered it in fresh salted butter.